Hello everyone, welcome to This Is Why We Stand. My name is Joe Archino, and I was inspired to make this series because of everything that's going on in our country right now. And you know, you look across the NFL and there's obviously a trend sweeping it where certain players don't feel the need to stand while our flag is being honored, and it hurts so many people for so many different reasons when players disrespect the flag like that by not standing. And obviously the military community is one of the biggest of all, but to me it hurts so much more than I can even put into words, because I know that my place in this world is because others sacrificed so that I could be here. And that's not just the case for me, that's the case for everyone in this country. We are here because our history is defined by people willing to sacrifice so much for our future, for our freedom, and for everything that we stand for. And American history is filled with so many examples, but the point of this series for me is to just give different examples throughout American history, maybe some ones that are well known, maybe some that are not as well known, but you just open up a book or you go on the internet and you type in anything and you'll quickly find all these different examples. But by the end of this, I just hope to reemphasize how important that flag is and the price so many were willing to pay for it and for everything that it meant. But I want to start off the first one of this series talking about the Battle of Gettysburg, Day 1, Rufus Dawes at the railroad cut. And you don't need to be too well versed in history to understand the significance of the Battle of Gettysburg. It obviously was the tipping point in the Civil War. If the Union had lost the Battle of Gettysburg, the Confederacy would have had a gateway right into Washington, D.C., and they would have won the war from there. But that's not what happened, and history was written the right way because the Union Army was able to gut it out and win the battle. And obviously it was a 3-day battle. Day 1 was almost a catastrophe for the Union Army, and I think you look at the way that Day 1 unfolded, there were so many Union losses and they kept being pushed back on that day. But one of the few Union commanders who did have some success that day was Rufus Dawes, and at the time of Gettysburg, Dawes was a 24-year-old lieutenant colonel. He led the 6th Wisconsin Infantry of the Iron Brigade. And the Iron Brigade is considered one of the biggest backbones of the Union Army during that time. These are men who saw so much experience, were at some of the biggest battles, and had a great deal of military success. And it was composed of 420 volunteers from the Western frontier, so there was a special identity about this group of soldiers. They had been at the biggest battles, they had seen so much, and they had done so many great things to support the Union Army. And again, I think one of the things that sometimes gets forgotten about is just how badly the Union were doing in this war. The Southern military commanders just seemed to have a firm grip over this war. General Lee, you look at all the other big-name commanders that they had, the South was winning this war badly, and the Union needed a resurgence. They needed men like the men in the Iron Brigade, the toughness that they displayed, because they didn't have some of those other things that the Southern Army had. But Dawes on Day 1, I think his story and the story of his battle really compels and conveys the point that I'm trying to make across about how important that flag is and why you always need to stand and honor those who sacrifice so much. But Dawes, a little bit of a background on him. His great-grandfather actually rode with Paul Revere, William Dawes, and I think when you kind of look at that, and obviously him being one of the guiding fathers of the nation, you kind of see how that is implanted so firmly in Dawes, and it explains so much when you look at him and the toughness that he showed and everything else. But during the Battle of the Railroad Cut, it was a little skirmish that took place outside of the actual town of Gettysburg, and the railroad cut was a position that the Confederates retreated back to. It At the early stage of this battle, Dawes thought that his men were giving chase to the Confederates and they were retreating, but what they were actually doing was retreating and falling back to this railroad cut, which was kind of a trench-like position where they had great cover and they could really be firmly implanted and make it a very difficult piece of ground to take for any attacking position or any attacking people. And obviously that's where Dawes' men found themselves on the receiving end of very quickly, and they were outnumbered 2-1 in that battle by the time that the rebels and the Confederates, which they are commonly known as, took the cut. But I think one of the most fascinating things that I found when researching this was basically by the time that the Confederates were in the cut and they were in their cover, they were in their position, Dawes' men were 175 yards to that cut, and it cost Dawes 1 man for every yard they advanced. And you just look at that number and it's just almost mind-boggling, the fact that every yard cost him a man basically. And again, you look at his men, the way it's composed, 420 volunteers. These are some of the best the Union had to offer, and just the mere fact that so many men lost or fell like that, it's just so just heartbreaking. But you look at the way that this battle unfolded, and I think one of the biggest things and the most significant things that comes out of this battle is the importance of the colors. And the colors obviously is in reference to the American flag. The Confederacy had their own flag, but the Union Army used the United States of America flag because that's what the Union Army was fighting for to keep this nation afloat. But the flag served a designated military function as much as it did being a symbol of the country. The flag, what it did was it served as something where in a line, basically, soldiers were able to look at the flag and understand where the line was so they don't get separated, and so you can keep things tactically organized. So that flag meant a great deal from a military functional standpoint, because that's how you keep your men in check, that's how you keep your lines, that's how you keep yourself organized. And on the battlefield, organization is just as important as any other thing that you talk about. And that made the men carrying the flag a big target. Soldiers would always aim for those guys because if you make him go down, you might create confusion and that might lead to an overall breakdown. So carrying the flag, you might not think would be one of the deadliest guys on the battlefield, but it was always a number one target for the enemy. And in the matter of minutes, Dawes lost 10 men carrying the colors. And to me, that's where the real story in the Battle of the Railroad Cut is. It's in the mere fact that in a span of minutes, 10 men lost their lives picking up the flag. It fell, someone was there to pick it up. It fell again, someone was there to pick it up. And I don't think that you would go out of your way to risk your life knowing that you're going to be the number one target on the battlefield over and over again unless you firmly believed in what that flag meant. Obviously, by picking up the flag, you're serving a military function on the battlefield. But you're not going to risk your life to pick up that flag and become an automatic target unless you believe in your heart what that flag represents and what that flag stands for. Time and time again, without hesitation, a man would be there to pick up the flag. And I think there's a great quote from Dawes where he said, "Men were being shot by the 20s and 30s, but the boys crowded in right and left towards the colors and went forward." You look at all the death and all the destruction that must be happening during this battle, but it didn't matter. Men were always there to pick up that flag. It did not matter what the circumstances were. I mean, there's even moments where someone would go down with the flag, and in a matter of seconds, someone would be right there to pick up that flag. And that means so much to me, and that's so significant. That's why, to me, I could never dream of not standing up and paying a tribute and respect to that flag, because I know that there are men who died carrying that flag in battle, carrying it for an idea. And this is one of many examples of the bravery with that flag. And this is just, I mean, you look at the way that people don't stand and respect. They have their reasons why they think that they're not doing it, but I don't think instances like this ever come across their mind, because that flag has been through so many battles. It has been seen so much death and so much destruction. But the continual story is someone was always there to pick up that flag. And I don't think you would go out of your way to pick that flag up unless you firmly believed in what that flag meant. And to me, I always have firmly believed in what that flag meant, and that's why I will always stand for it. But it's just a little perspective to kind of think about there when you consider that 10 men in the matter of minutes fell and continued to pick up that flag because they understood what the flag meant beyond its designated military function. But back to the battle a little bit. The fight was only about 20 minutes, and in that span, over 600 Confederates died, were either wounded or were missing, and that's just, again, staggering numbers. For a 20-minute battle, 600 died, were wounded, or were captured. And again, it speaks to the destructive nature of the Civil War. And during the Civil War, it's a time where there's so much new technology, so much more destructive technology that can kill easier, faster, quicker, and make the body count just go up to incredible numbers. And when you kind of look back to the fact that the Civil War was fought with older tactics that maybe didn't match up with that new technology, that's one of the reasons why so many men died and why the death toll was so high. But Dawes lost nearly half his men during that 20-minute battle. And, it's one of those other heartbreaking things where this was one of the cream of the crops of the Iron Brigade. So many great soldiers who saw so much experience during the war, but they lost their lives on day one of the battle. But to me, when I started thinking about putting this series together, I was watching some stuff, and this is one of the things that came up. And, when I heard the story about the colors, and in that instance where Dawes lost, there was 10 men in the matter of minutes, but someone kept on picking up the flag, I thought, what could be a better way to start this series than with this battle? It's not one of the most well-known in the Battle of Gettysburg or in the Civil War for all of that. But I think more than anything, that there is one of the stories that conveys the ultimate meaning of that flag. Men, one after the other, kept on falling, but someone was always there to make sure that that flag was staying up and was going up because it meant so much to them and because it meant something that goes beyond words and beyond description. And I think that's one of the biggest things. You can use all the words that you want to try to describe it, but the flag has a meaning that almost goes beyond words because it's been through so much. It's been through almost everything imaginable. It's seen its share of wars on our own home turf and then across the world. It's been almost everywhere, and it's seen so many things that people would never hope that they would have to see. But there are men who did see those things so that we don't have to. And this is one of those many examples where the men of the Iron Brigade of the 6th Wisconsin Infantry, they saw some things that we could never imagine. They saw death and destruction, but they were there and they kept on moving forward until they had the victory in hand. And this series will continue to go, but one of many examples in American history why you always need to stand. And to me, I think obviously our country right now is in a point where we're in a troubling situation. But to me, the only way to find strength is to look to the past. And when you look to the past, you will see an incredible, incredible amount of unending strength. It doesn't matter what war you look to. It doesn't matter what period you look to. There are instances where undeniable, incredible, almost unhuman strength can be found. In the Battle of Gettysburg, Day 1, Rufus Dawes at the railroad cut is the first of many. But again, you can follow me on Twitter at Joe Archino, also on Instagram, Jersey_Joe_Archino, and you could keep up with all my things there. But the series will not stop, and I hope that if anyone listening to this wanted to find what the ultimate meaning was, and maybe I helped you understand why so many people are bothered when you don't stand and pay tribute to that flag. Obviously, a lot of people who don't do that, again, they have their reasons why they aren't doing it, but I'm telling you that there's a reason why you're here. There's a reason why I'm here, and it's because people sacrificed like Rufus Dawes' men did during the Battle of Gettysburg so we could be here. And that's not just the only example. There are many others. But you stand because it's the right thing to do, and you stand because someone sacrificed so you could even have the ability to make the choice between doing it or not doing it. And that's about all for this one. Thank you for listening, everyone.